All right. Let's turn this down. Okay. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Megumi, hi. All right. So there's some background noise right now, so I apologize in advance for that. So the purpose of today's stream is that I've been asked for this list for a while now, and I wasn't. I was expecting to do a video about it, but I haven't streamed for a while, so I found, I found like a good idea doing so I can share this with all of you guys, and it's easier to me because I don't have to edit it. Franco Muscellini, welcome. How you doing today, sir? All right, so we have a very long list ahead. So let's start right ahead, okay? So what I'm going to do is, this is my list, all right? I know that the fandom has different perspective of each of the episodes. You might have seen other lists. You might have your own list. So I've been doing my own list over the years, and some of this episode has changed on how I like it, and I will talk about it as we move on. All right. So these are the criteria that I'm taking. I'm going to talk about that a bit. Number one is how memorable the episode is. Okay, there are episodes that we forget. That are, at the end of the day, not really important for the story and how the story develops. But there are episodes that are very important and very memorable, right? And that's one way that we can actually distinguish from one another. Another measure is when the episode has one of those wow moments, a big reveal or a big fighting scene. That maybe the rest of the episode is not that good, but there's that particular part of the episode that is really good and really impactful, right? And it makes the episode looks better. And finally, the first-time viewer's perspective, because it's also very important. It's important for the legacy of the story. Okay? So it's not the same as the second time as you experience the story, or the third time. It's like me, that I know the whole story for 25 years. So for me, it's not as impactful as it was 25 years ago. So, but I have to take into account that, because that affects the legacy of the story as well. Okay. So let's begin. I have my notes here. Of course, guys, you are welcome to join and give your perspective and what are your favorite episodes. I want to hear them all. And if you disagree, tell me, let me know. That's very important. That's the purpose of this activity. Okay. So let's start, because it's going to be a long journey ahead. So let's start with episode 1. Now, episode 1 is The Angel Attack. That's the title of it. It's the introduction to the story. It's Sakiel, one of the most recognizable angels in the whole story. This is a straight A. Now, let me talk a little bit on this. I was thinking on doing a ranking from number 1 to number 26, but it's not unfair. It's very unfair to many of these episodes, because these episodes are all very different from one another, but that doesn't make them better on quality, right? It's just they are in different times of the story. So I decided to do a tier list, because they could be as good, but for different reasons. So to make this more clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a number to it. Like S is a 10, right? A is a 9. B is an 8. C is a 7. And D is a 6. In my opinion, no episode of Neon Genesis Evangelion is lower than a 6. So there's no F. There's no other letters. All right. So it's from 6 to 10. Let's move on now. Where are you? Here. All right. So the introduction of the story is very important for many people. You are checking this story for the first time. You don't know what it's about. You have heard something. You have seen publicity material. And episode 1 starts right on the action, right? You have this giant creature that you don't know exactly what it is. It's attacking the city. Then you have this character that is coming out of town. He's not prepared to defeat this powerful enemy. You're introduced to Misato, right? Who is this outspoken girl. And only with Misato, you know you're going to stick around because she's very interesting at that point. If you're a mecha lover, you get Evangelion Unit 1. So you have all these good elements in this introduction to the story. Now, we don't know what the story is about. We don't know anything that is coming after that. But as an introduction to the story, episode 1 is very memorable. It's one of the iconic episodes, and it's a 9, in my opinion. Okay? Let's move to episode 2. That's The Beast. Okay? So episode 2 is a follow-up to episode 1. Now, the way that this episode is told is a little bit weird because they tell us first, like, the aftermath. So the story starts when Misato starts, like, taking Shinji into her apartment, and we get more on Misato's background and how she lives. She's a disaster. She's an alcoholic, and she's outspoken, and she's, like, trying to seduce Shinji, but, in a very funny, lightweight. So, the story is good, but we never get the resolution because episode 1 ends on a cliffhanger, right? That we have to wait to the second part of the episode to actually see what happened on the first episode. So the way it's told is a little bit confusing. So if you're into it for the mecha, you have to wait to the second part of the episode. That might be intentional or not, because they might have done this intentional. So you stick around and first meet the characters before heading towards the resolution of the first episode. So that might have been intentional, but for me it was a mistake. And the way that they told this story, these first 2 episodes, they don't have to do that time jumping back and forth. It can be confusing for the first time viewer, but still it's a resolution. Still we get about Unit 1 defeating Sakiel, and we see for the first time what is under the helmet, right? What is under the helm of EVA Unit 1. We see he has an eye. So if you're here for the mecha, you know that this mecha can be very interesting at this point. So episode 2 is a B. It's a good story. It's a good episode. You get the resolution to episode 1. But that weird time jump between what happened after Matt's being presented before the resolution of episode 1 can hurt a little bit the story. But still, it's a very strong episode. So it's an 8. It's a very good episode. And this could have been a 1 episode, to tell you the truth. Okay? Rusty Spork, welcome. Orahan Adermi, 23 is my favorite after the both finals, of course. Episode 23, we're going to talk about episode 23. All right? It was character building, says Rusty Sport. Correct. We're going to talk more about character building because the first character that they are going to build, or they're going to try to build, is Shinji, right? Let's move on. Episode 3 is a transfer. Where is it? Episode 3. Okay. Now here, in episode 3, there are 2 highlights in this episode. The first highlight is that Shinji meets with Toji, right? And Toji hits him. And the second highlight, of course, is the Sam Shell battle. Now, if you're into it for the mecha aspect, you get that battle, right? But the way that Shinji is presented in episode 3, in my opinion, is very weak, on the sense that you don't feel sympathy. I didn't feel sympathy for this character. Like, I was like, this guy is crying, he's a whiner, you know. It feels like pathetic, in my opinion. And that started on episode 3, and we're gonna get into episode 4 because it's a direct follow-up. But still, episode 3 has good moments. The Toji scene was very good. It's a memorable moment. And Samshell battle. That, by the way, the Samshell battle. Samshell is a very, very important angel for the story. Because it's the first angel in which Nerf is able to collect the S2 engine that is later sent to Germany for further development. And then Germany sent it to the United States for Unit 4, right? Which, in theory, was going to be the first unit that was going to be carrying the S2 engine. But Unit 4 exploded, and we're going to talk about it later on when we get to episode 17. But Samshell appears as a floating angel. It's big, it looks menacing. But the battle itself, Shinji doesn't have major problems taking him off, right? And that's a weak spot on the storytelling. So for me, episode 3 is a 7. It's a C. Because it has two memorable moments. Samshell is very important. But I haven't felt yet on episode 3 any sympathy for Shinji. I feel Shinji is pathetic at this point. So it's hard to me given more than a C7. MS, I know a lot of people say that Shinji is a whiny boy, but I do think it is a great exploration of how people feel helpless in depression and becomes apathetic to everything around them. That's correct, but we don't know that until later on the story, and we are trying to follow this chronologically, right? Let's go to episode 4. Now, episode 4 is titled The Hedgehog Dilemma. This is the episode in which Shinji runs away for the first time. This is the only episode, by the way, guys. This is the only episode in the entire story that is not written by Hideki Anno. Okay? The only episode. And you can feel it. Right? My problem with episode 4 is that Shinji doesn't face the consequences. It has is this follow-up of this boy that is sad and you don't know what's going on, in the sense that he's weak and he's whining and all the time. Misato is there, but still Misato in this episode, the only part that is really memorable is that long quiet scene in which they look one another on the train station, and he decides to stay because Misato is there and Misato wants Shinji back, and it's as you guys say, build up on their relationship. But they take the whole episode to tell that story, and that's like the only memorable part, okay, in my opinion. And the storytelling changes a bit because it's not Hideki Anno's work, episode 4. So for me, episode 4, if you have stick around after episode 4, you're going to watch the whole thing. But I think it's a turn off for a lot of people. So episode 4 is a 6. It's one of those weak episodes that, I don't know, it feels weird. And that long quiet scene at the end, it feels like a fill-up scene, to tell you the truth. Now, 25 years later, you can see the artistic out of it, right? After watching it and knowing these characters and knowing what the story was heading towards to, you can appreciate it. But for a first-time viewer, you will be like, well, what's happening? It's the screen froze or something? You know, there was no need for that, is what I'm trying to say. Franco Mussolini says, I just skip episode 4 on my rewatch. Rossi Sport says, I didn't like episode 4. Well, you're not wrong. It's terrible. It's very weak. Besides, it's one of the only episodes that Misato appears with blue jeans. She doesn't appear in her normal outfits. She has 3 outfits that she uses across the story, and on the episode 4, she uses blue jeans, which is the only time she uses full pant blue jeans. Now, that's another thing that this story has, because the original idea of making Misato is that Misato should appear on every episode with a different outfit, because she was going to be this fashion genius, right? Or this fashion obsessed with fashion kind of girl. But then they realized that they didn't know anything about fashion. So it was very hard to do that with Misato, because the creators didn't know anything about about fashion. So that's why on the first episode it's kind of weird, her outfit, and then she kind of sticks with one outfit. Let's move to episode 5. Episode 5 is Ray 1. That's the name of the episode, even though there is not Ray 1, but it's the name of the episode. Where is it? Episode 5. Okay. So if you're a Ray fan, this is a very memorable episode. In this episode, we get a flashback that explains Ray's injuries on episode 1, right? It was just before Shinji got into town. She was unable to synchronize with Evil Unit 0, and it resulted on Unit 0 going berserk, and she getting her injuries, right? We see how Gendikari goes to save her. He burns his hands. His eyeglasses fell. They melt. And that's basically how she got those injuries. Then Shinji is given the task to give her the new ID. He goes to her apartment. He still look around, takes his dad glasses, look at Ray naked. He falls over her, presses her chest. All of this is kind of fan service, but it's a very iconic moment. And if you are a Ray fan, you love this moment, right? Then we can see and explore how Ray really likes and respects Gendikari when Shinji tells her that he doesn't believe and he doesn't trust on his father's work, and she slaps him in the face and all this, right? And by the end of the story, she's able to synchronize with Eva Zero. So episode 5, because it's a very memorable episode, and we are starting to get a character development on Ray, for me it's a B. Okay, it's a solid episode. It's a good episode, but we are starting to get some character development on Ray. But she's a introvert, and her personality, it's make her hard to like at first glance, because we don't really know what Ray is and what her role in the story is. All we know by episode 5 is that she's another pilot and she's been injured, and she has this weird relationship with the boss, right, which is Gendikari. That's it. Comfort Zone Comics says, good evening, pylons. Hello, Comfort Zone. Welcome to the stream. Rusty Spork says, evening, Comfort Zone. Oh, we're saying hi to each other. That's good. That's good. Now let's move forward to episode 6. Oh boy, if you have been stick around for a bit, episode 6 is the first 10 out of 10. This is Ramiel's episode. This is the episode in which Shinji is defeated for the first time. We learned that Evangelion units are not undefeatable, right? Ramiel just appears, shoot him in the chest, melts the whole thing. Misato has to rescue him, turning the Unit 1 down to the Dogma again. The whole thing is a mess, right? Shinji goes into the hospital. He's he's completely unable to move at the beginning of the story. Misato has to devise Yashima. We go through all this development of Misato's character. She's turning into this, or she is presented as this military genius, right? She knows that she cannot confront Ramiel directly. She knows Shinji's not experienced. She knows that she needs to follow the line of command. She's a true leader. She's planning all this, and she's using the tools that she has at her disposal, right? Then we have more development of Rei. Rei shows us this character that she's going to risk her life to save and to save others and to get the job done, right? So it's a beautiful episode. It's the foundation of Rei and Shinji relationship as well, because at the end of the story, Shinji emulates exactly the same as his father did with Rei, right? During the Basiro incident. And he went into that entry plug and burned his hand. He doesn't get the injuries because he's on the entry and in the plug suit, protected his hands, but he still starts to develop these feelings towards Rei, and Rei smiles at the end. It's a very memorable moment. It's like it has everything that is perfect about Evangelion. It has a great fighting scenes, battle scenes with the mechas. Great angel, Ramiel, a very memorable angel. Powerful angel. Misato is devising a plan that can defeat the angel, but it's a risky plan. She puts the pilot's life at risk. We are shown the other side of Rei, this called introvert girl, that she actually is very effective and she actually can feel something. And we get some positive on Shinji's development, right? He's not afraid. He can overcome his fears and face the enemy. So this episode is the first. If you have stick around at this episode and you watch this episode after watching the all other 5 episodes, you're gonna stick around a little bit longer. So that's why episode 6 is so important, and why I believe it's the first episode that really, really, really stands out. Rossi Sport says a little harder. Rossi Sport says Ramiel, my favorite angel in the remake. Ramiel in Reveal, yes. Comfort Zone says he has a big legacy, basically, because of the resemblance to that older anime villain. Let's move on to episode 7. Now, episode 7 is Misato's episode, A Human Work. Let's see. Okay. Episode 7. That's the Jet Alone episode, and it's the first time that we see Misato flashback, right, on the South Pole. At the beginning of the show, we see for the first time Misato's scar on her chest. We see that Misato has we are hinted that Misato has a dark background, and it's not as simple as it seems. Then they are sent to the original Tokyo for the activation of the Jet Alone, and they go representing Nerve, she and Ritsuko. They have to go through all this side story in which all these guys are making fun of them because basically they are not only Nerve personnel, but there is the competition, but also because they are women, right? So that's the intention, like making them look like they have to overcome all these kind of sexism that still exists in Japan, right? At that time. After that, Misato rises as a leader. She decides to put her life at risk to avoid the Jet Alone to become basically a nuclear bomb that he becomes. And he, in this particular scene, she's telling Shinji that he's going to be alright because he's going to be inside Evangelion Unit 1. and Evangelion Unit 1 can resist a nuclear meltdown. But Shinji then says that she's not going to survive because she cannot, right? She's going to be inside the jet alone. So the whole episode is to build Misato's character. We don't really know for sure what exactly happened. It's strongly hinted that it was Ritsuko who sabotaged the jet alone for Nerf under the orders of Gendikari, and it was Ritsuko who was the one that prevented, that aborted the whole mission to let the jet alone to self-explode, right? Just to save Misato's life, who was inside her. So this is one of my favorite episodes because Misato is one of my favorite characters of all times. So it's an A. Misato doesn't have a lot of episodes. This is a Misato episode. It's the jet alone episode. And only because of the jet alone is a very memorable episode. And the relationship with Shinji and Misato, between Shinji and Misato, develops very good. And I think they do a great job developing Misato's character arc. That's why it's a 9. Imperishable Need says, Ramil is the best waifu. Probably, yeah. The jet alone. Rusty Spock says, 7 was okay. Oh, sorry about that. Please don't demonetize me. That's my ringtone. Let's turn that off. I have to turn my cell phone off. Give me a second. If not, it's not going to stop. Franco Mussolini says, in this week, see how sneaky is Nerf. Yeah, they are not the good guys, right? It seems like they are doing some shady stuff. Comfort Zone says, the teamwork of Misato and Shinji is also nice. This will return later. That's correct. Now, the early episodes do a great job developing that relationship. And then we have episode 8. What happens in episode 8? Asuka's first episode. Now, this episode is really important. Not only because Asuka is in it, but also because, well, yes, because of that. It's the first introduction to Asuka to the world, right? Not only to the Evangelion world, but to the anime world. Asuka nowadays is the face of the franchise, one of the most noticeable faces in anime worldwide. The tsundere by excellence. Everybody, when someone says tsundere, automatically thinks on Asuka. She still makes the list of many favorite waifus of all times, of many tsunderes of all times. She's always up there. So episode 8 is by itself a true legacy of the Neon Genesis Evangelion story. Now, I do have problems with episode 8. That's why I'm putting a 9. Other than Asuka. We also introduced, by the way, in this episode to Kaji. Okay? So the problem that I have with episode 8 is because it's the first episode that the angel attack doesn't make sense. Because the first angels that attack Tokyo 3, we are let known that they are attacking Tokyo 3 because there is this angel in the terminal Dogma, and the goal of these angels is to go towards that angel, right? To destroy the world. That's like the basic understanding that you're given in the first episodes, right? But then it makes no sense that this angel appears in the middle of the ocean attacking the convoy. That even Misato is confused, that says that why is this angel here? Is he attacking Eva Unit 2? We are later revealed that the reason why the angel was attacking the convoy is because Kaji was carrying Adam embryos, right? But still doesn't make sense, because if Adam embryos was in Germany at the time that the other three angels were attacking Tokyo 3, then why the other three angels were attacking Tokyo 3, right? Now we know the existence of Lilith, but because we know the whole story. But what is the goal of the angels, really? Go towards Lilith or goes towards Adam? Right? There's a little bit of conflict there. So, because the actual purpose is to go towards Lilith. So, so we are let open this why these angels didn't attack Germany if Adam was in Germany at that time, right? The previous three angels, I mean. So that's the main plot hole that I have in my mind. That is like for episode 8. Every time I rewatch it, it has one of my most memorable moments. Episode 8, don't get me wrong, which is when Shinji gets into the entry plot, which is Asuka. For me, is one of the best moments in whole Evangelion story. And they start fighting each other for the controls. That whole sequence is very good. But you know, these plot holes and these conflicts that they are not very well explained until the end of the show, it always bothered me. You know, it's a big weakness on the storytelling, in my opinion, and that starts in episode 8. That's why it loses a point, in my opinion. Rosy Spork said, my favorite episode, Love Asuka. It was after Adam. Yes, of course it was after Adam, but as I said, why the other angels didn't attack Germany? Because Adam wasn't in Japan. It was in Germany. That's why that was Kaji was bringing it for Gendikari. So it was a plot hole, right? Okay, let's move on. Episode 9. Okay. So, episode 9. This is I love this episode. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't know I can say about that episode. Episode 9 is the episode in which Asuka and Shinji has to sync in order to defeat the twin angel. Right? They live together. Asuka moves in with Shinji and Misato. This is the start of it's an Asuka episode because we mostly focus on Asuka, but it's also an Asuka Shinji episode. It's the first Asuka Shinji real episode because Shinji starts to be there for her. Okay, so how the events evolve in this episode is that first of all, at that point of the story, Unit 2 is the best Evangelion unit by far. Number 2, Asuka is the most prepared pilot by far. And Asuka knows that, and she's a person with a lot of ego, and she tries to defeat the enemy by herself, and she fails. Shinji also fails, but then Misato tells them, because of Kaji's plan, that they have to synchronize in able to defeat the angel, because every time that they attack the angel divides itself, right? So this is when we start to get that relationship evolve a little bit, and they do it really good, because in order for this relationship to work, the Shinji-Asuka relationship, is to Asuka to fail, and she does. And she doesn't only fails against the angel in the first part on the first part with the first battle, but also she fails to synchronize with Shinji, and it's her fault, because then Misato replaces her with Rei, and Rei synchronizes perfectly with Shinji. Asuka realizes this, and she runs away towards the convenience store because she feels that she was not only defeated by Shinji, but also by Rei and Misato. So she's now in a low point. Who appears? Shinji. So now there's a shift on the way that Asuka sees Shinji for the first time. Because Shinji is there for her. Probably is the first person that is really there for her, that is not going to quit on her in her life. Remember, her mother replaced her with a doll, and then she committed suicide. And the mother wanted to kill Asuka because she wanted Asuka to die with her. So this was a very important day for Asuka. This was a very important scene for Asuka's development. And they sync perfectly. Now, how do we know that Asuka is starting to feel something there for Shinji in episode 9? It's because when Asuka is at 9 and Asuka is sleepwalking, right? She goes to the bathroom and then she throws her body towards Shinji while Shinji is sleeping, right? Now, some people argue that she did it intentionally. I believe that she did it unconsciously. She was unconscious. She was sleepy. She was sleepwalking. But because she did it unconsciously, it has more meaning, right? Because she feels that she's protected while being close to Shinji. And that's why she unconsciously throws her body towards Shinji and sleeps with Shinji, basically. And then, of course, we have the epic final battle scene with the epic battle song, right? I would love to put for you guys because I love that song, but, copyright. And I think that whole sequence, that whole mecha battle sequence is beautiful. It's perfect. It fits the story. Everybody being happy on how the results and were and the final scene in which Asuka and Shinji start fighting each other because they fell to each other. Each Eva fell. I think Eva 2 fell into Eva over Eva 1, and Shinji and Asuka were fighting. That was hilarious, and it is a great episode. It makes Evangelion. Episode 9 is a masterpiece. Comfort says epic episode. Jason Severo says 4 is one of my favorite episodes. Lol. And it's indeed. Oh, good lord. So, episode 10. Magma Diver. This is the third Asuka episode in a row. So it's the first time that we actually get to see an angel before evolving. We are getting a first glance introduction on how angels actually behave. They are presented as a cocoon and then they evolve. Nerve tried to capture the angel, and Asuka is assigned with a task to do it. So she has to get into this block suit that actually is inverse. So instead of feeding her body, it actually expands, and the Evangelion Unit 2 has to go into this weird armor, right? So it can dive into the magma. Now, this episode has a ton of fan service for Asuka's fans, right? We are shown her body multiple times. It starts kind of weird with Asuka and Kaji relationship that I never liked because they were buying. The intention was because they were going to a field trip with a school, and Asuka needed a swimsuit, so she goes with Kaji, and they are like very close, holding arms. It's very weird. It's nothing like Misato and Shinji's relationship, because even though the Misato is more spoken to Shinji than Kaji is to Asuka, Misato knows that Shinji is never going to do something to her in that way, But Kaji knows that Asuka could do it and never puts a stop to it. It's very weird. It's a very weird relationship. I never liked that. Thank God in Rebuild we never get that, but in Neon Genesis Evangelion we do. So it starts very weird, but then she gets this bikini and she goes into the pool with Rei and Shinji. She is studying. There's a reason why Shinji is not in the pool, and we're gonna talk about that later when we get to episode 16. But she goes and she covers her breast, and Shinji's studying what was condensation or something like that, and she explains that if people feel cold and the tissue constrict, and when people feel or animated things feel hot, they expand. And she puts her hands on her breast, and he feels ashamed by it, and then we have all these fan service for Asuka that it's really that's it, and then because the nitty gritty of the story is actually trying to find Sandalphon and trying to capture Sandalphon. That's the story. All of the rest is just fan service, and they fail, right? Sandalphon evolves, fights Asuka. Asuka almost dies, but Shinji saves her. Now there's a scene there that Shinji looks towards Shinji when she was in Unit 2 and looking at Shinji, and she says, "You came, right?" And that's when I think she realized that she has strong feelings towards him. And that's an impactful moment. That's a very beautiful moment. That's why episode 10 for me is important. Now, I cannot say that it's as good as episode 8. So, because of all the necessary fan service, and we really have like 6 to 7 minutes of real story, is an 8. By the way, that episode ends with Misato and Asuka on the hot springs, in which Asuka says, "Oh, Misato, don't touch me there," or something like that. It gets really, really weird. So that's the reason why I put it on B. It's an 8. It's a very solid one. It's a memorable. It has a ton of memorable moments. It's a good episode, but it's as good as episode 5. It's as good as episode 2. It's not episode 8. It's not episode 9. Rossi Spock said, "Oh, Mark McDiver." Franco Michelini says, "It's thermal expansion." That's later pays off on the episode. That's true, right? So episode 10 is an 8. Let's go to episode 11. Episode 11, it looks a little bit dark, but this is Material Attack. That's the angel that looks like a spider, right? That day that, what's the name of this? The name that Tokyo 3 stood still, I think it was. The day Tokyo 3 stood still, yes, correct. So, in this episode, episode 11, we get to see how the daily life of NERV personnel is, right? We start the episode with Aoba and his guitar in the street, and with Maya, and they're heading towards work, going to the subway, and they found Kozo Fuyutsuki there with a newspaper. So it's a daily routine in which they do, and it's welcome. We get to see them outside work, but then electricity goes off, right, for some reason, very suspicious reasons, and an angel attack at the same time. Asuka, Shinji, and Rei are not able to get into NERV because they were outside. They were heading towards NERV when all the electricity goes down, and they have to go through all these tunnels to get into the terminal Dogma and get into the Evangelion units. Now in NERV, they don't know that there's an angel attacking. because they have all missing communication to the outside world because of electricity, and Misato and Kaji, they are trapped in the elevator. Now this episode, for me, is important on the way that we see more of Asuka on how she develops her leadership skills. That is all she has, really, because she doesn't have any idea on how to solve the situation all the way until the end, but she doesn't know how to get into it. That's Rey's idea, because Rey follows the manual. Asuka doesn't follow the manual. And of course, Shinji doesn't do it either because he's lazy. Right? So if it wasn't for Rey, they would never be inside Nerf. But Asuka takes like the leadership of the group, and she fails because she has no idea what she's doing. But still, she has those leadership skills. On the other hand, we kind of let know that the one that actually was plotting the whole electricity going off was Kaji, right? The reason is very, very shady. I'm not sure if I believe that, but it was on purpose, right? I don't know if it was Kaji. There's a lot of fun theories regarding that. But yes, it was intentional, and the intention was to the Angel to be able to actually attack Nerf headquarters and all these weird thing that was going on at the time. But I mean, at the end, these kids get to the terminal Dogma. They are able to get into the Evangelion units. Asuka comes with the idea. She puts herself as shield because Material has this saliva that is actually acid, and he starts pouring through the tunnels. So Asuka uses her body as a shield to allow Shinji to get ready to defeat the Angel, and that's basically it. That's the whole episode. So it's a good episode. It's an Evangelion adventure. It's an Evangelion episode. It doesn't have many flaws, but it doesn't add anything to the story, to tell you the truth. It's an entertaining episode. It doesn't have many weaknesses. Other than it doesn't add anything to the story. So it's a B. It's an entertaining story. It's a good Evangelion story, but doesn't add anything to the story overall. And Material is a good angel, I guess. But that's it. That's all. That's all I can say about that story. Episode 11. So that leads us to episode 12, right? Sahakiel is episode 12. So this episode is titled She Said Don't Make Other Stuff for Your Personal Hatred. That's the English title, by the way. So here we are told Shinji and Misato relationship evolves more, because we are shown how Misato is telling Shinji about her past and how her father saved her during the second impact, right? How he put her in the escape pod, and she saw Adam and the explosion on seas, and at the same time there is this threat that comes from outer space, because Sahakiel is the first angel that comes out of space, right? So again, Ikari is in Antarctica. Misato comes with this plan that she has to deploy the 3 Evangelion units to stop the angel with her hands, right? Now, Sahakiel is one of the most famous angels in the story. He appears on Reveal, Reimagine. I think it looks really good there as well. And the plan is very risky. We get to see how Misato, in this point, she's risking the life of everyone at Nerf, and the children and everyone, so she can defeat the angel, because they don't know exactly where the angel is going to land or where he's going to attack. So she comes with this plan that, each one of them has to go around on different strategic spots. So then they have to run once they know. It's a very complicated plan. It's a very risky plan. So it serves as Misato's character development. So episode 12 for me is an A. Again, it's a Misato episode. It's a memorable episode. We get the 3 Evangelion units running across the city. It made it to Reveal, Reimagine, is really important episode for character development of Misato. For the three children, it's a very, very impactful angel attack that can destroy the whole city. So yeah, episode 12 is definitely a 9. It's definitely a 9. That leads us to episode 13. Episode 13 is Ritsuko episode. The only one, by the way. Now you can argue what was episode 23, I think it was. It's also kind of a Ritsuko episode. But episode 13 is the first Ritsuko episode. Now, I remember the first time I was watching Evangelion back in the day, Ritsuko for me was one of the most likable characters because at that point of the story. But episode 13 was kind of a letdown. This is all about she explaining the Magi system, and because there's this angel in form of computer virus that is getting towards this trying to take Magi, and the Magi supercomputers, and the Evangelion units cannot fight this angel, and the 3 pilots are they are naked on their blocks, on their entry blocks, and they are ejected outside Nerve because they don't want this virus to infect them. So they are led stranded on the outskirts of Tokyo 3, and it's Ritsuko who has to solve the issue, right? So she tells a lot on how her mother was a mother, but also she was a professional, but also she was a woman, and that her brain is in one of these computers, and it's not that it's her actual mother, but it has like these traits, so the computer can actually think and as her mother did, and that's take a pivotal part on the end of Evangelion, because we know that one of these computers of the Magi system is the one that betrays her, right? There is the woman part that is in love with Gendo Ikari and betrays the daughter. That's the end of Evangelion. That's the resolution for Dr. Akage's story. So that's the only thing that I can see that is relevant, but because it has an importance on the way that they had to explain what the Magi system is, and it takes an important role on the end of Evangelion. That they reuse some of the images, by the way, in this episode. Episode 13, which is the only Ritsuko episode, for me is a B. A B. Yes, it's definitely a B. The Magi system importance is way too big to put it less than a B. And that leads us to episode 14. Now, episode 14 was the name Weaving a Story, I believe it is. Weaving a Story, yes. This episode sucks. This episode sucks. It's a fill-up episode. The episode in total, I think it runs for 23 minutes. The first 15 minutes of the episode is a recap on all of these events. So this is the episode that you get this week, right? And all you get is a compilation of the other 13 episodes. And then the other part of the episode, the 8 minutes that are left, there's only one thing that happens that is relevant, and that is that Shinji's trying Unit 0. He synced with Unit 0 and it goes berserk, and Unit 0 attacks Rei. Now, if you've been following my content, you know that there are many theories regarding why it's that, right? Now, the fandom has agreed, it's my responsibility to say, that the reason why Unit 0 attacks Rei, Rei was in the control room, so she's not like Unit 0 attacks Rei, is hitting the wall, is because Rei 1 soul is in Unit 0. Now, that's what the fandom has agreed on. Right? I don't agree with that. I completely disagree with that. And I've been called many names over the years by disagreeing with that. Because I do believe that the soul that resides within Unit Zero is actually Naoko, which is Ritsuko's mother. I always have defended that and still defend it. That's why Unit Zero attacks Rei. As we are going to learn in episode 21, the full story of Naoko Akagi. But other than that, episode 14 is a fill-up episode. It's a compilation episode. It serves like a mid story to bring you back on how the story has developed so far. It's very boring, actually. It sucks. Alright, so let's take us to episode 15. So episode 15 is, what's the name of it? This is a romance episode. The name of it is Those Women Long for the Touch of Others' Lips. Sorry. Those women long for the touch of others' lips and thus invited their kisses. That's the name of the episode. So this episode starts with Shinji visiting his mother's grave with his father. Right? So at the beginning of the story, Shinji is kind of anxious and he's on his bed, and then Misato opens the door, invading his personal space, and tells her that she also had this weird relationship with her father, and it's kind of a build up on their relationship, like a little hint that that's still going on. But then things start to get interesting after Shinji goes and visits Yui's grave, right? Sorry, I'm a little bit hungry here. Give me a second, wait. All right. So this episode is important romantically for all of our characters, except maybe for Rei. But first, let's talk about Shinji and Asuka, right? Now, in school, Ikari comes and asks Asuka to go out with her friend, right? She's setting her up on a date that she doesn't want to go. Asuka doesn't want to go. But she does it because of Ikari, right? As a favor. At the same time, Misato has to go to this wedding with Ritsuko and Kaji, of a longtime friend. They're marrying and they are all together. They were invited all together. So let's talk first of Asuka and Shinji. As I said, Asuka is in this date. Asuka knows that Shinji is alone in the apartment because Misato is in the wedding. But Asuka is in this date, right? She dumps the guy. She asked the guy for something like cotton candy or something like that. And when he was heading towards getting that cotton candy, she just runs away and goes towards Shinji and the apartment, and Misato's apartment. And then Asuka gets to the apartment and listens Shinji playing the cello. And she's astounded of Shinji's new skills, and she compliments him. I think this is the first time in the story that Asuka actually compliments Shinji. And then she asks him to kiss her, right? But they do. They kiss each other. Of course, as Asuka's fashion, after seeing how Shinji kind of he couldn't breathe because she was holding her nose. Very weird. The whole sequence is very weird. And Pen walks by and look at them. I don't know. It was set very weird. And then he's like, I cannot breathe. And she runs towards the bathroom to wash her teeth. But that's the first time they kissed. And was her that asked for that kiss. It wasn't him. The other side of the story is we get the development of Kaji and Misato's relationship, right? And Ritsuko tells Kaji, because at the start of this episode, Kaji is trying to unveil the purpose of Nerve and Seal and the Marduk Institute and all this. So we are revealed that he is actually a triple spy that is working for Seal. He's working for the Japanese government, but he is also working for Gendo Ikari. So Ritsuko knows. So if Ritsuko knows, Gendo Ikari knows. And if Gendo Ikari knows, Nerve knows. And usually if Nerve knows, Seals know. So he knows at that point, because the dialogue starts very dark, like I know that there's no turning back, something like that he says to Ritsuko. And he wants to uncover the truth, that's his goal. And and that all he wants from Misato is the good memories, right? And they are lived together. Misato gets drunk. He walks her home. Misato has this Electra complex moment telling him that the reason why they broke up in the first place was because he reminded her of her father. And she goes into this spiral of truth, and it gets very sad and all that. And they kiss each other, and that's how that sequence ends. So we learn how Kaji replaced that father-like figure to Misato, and she was afraid of that, and she was afraid to get into a commitment with Kaji. It's more of Misato's character development and her relationship with Kaji, and it's the first time in the story that actually Misato opens up to Kaji. Since episode 8, and we are already on episode 15, so it's been almost 7 episodes. So this is a very good episode. It's a romantic episode. It's an important episode with a ton of memorable moments. Episode 15 is an A. It's an A. It lacks of action scenes. That's why it's not an S. But it has a ton of good moments. It is very important for the story and the character development of each of these characters. So episode 15, an A. It's a 9 out of 10. J.K. Aguilar says, I will argue against the place of 14. I believe it may not have contributed to the plot, but to me focused more on exploring what a soul is in a philosophical sense. That's true, because we get to see Rei watching herself, right? But we get other episodes that also happens in a more effective way. Again, a D for me is a 6, which is a good episode because it's a Evangelion episode, but it's not one of those great episodes. It's compared to the other ones, it feels weak, and half of the episode is still a compilation, and that's what makes it weak. Now, if it was going to be a whole, the whole episode is about Rei and exploring Rei, that would be more interesting, but it's not. At least that's my opinion. No? Now, that sequence of Rei is very interesting and it's very important. That's true. So, that leads us to episode 16. That episode 16 is Leliel's episode. Right? Now, this episode, Shinji is starting to feel comfortable, right? He kisses Asuka. He feels protected by Misato. He's doing good on his sync test. He's feeling good. He's starting to feel good for the first time in the story. He's starting to get very interesting to the viewer. How he's developing. He's getting very relatable. Is turning into this positive character. So this angel attack is Leliel, right? And he goes forward to it. He doesn't follow Misato's order. He attacks the angel, and the angel we are discovered that the angel is not actually the sphere that we see in the sky, but it's actually this shadow, right? And he assaults Shinji, and then we go into this sequence in which Shinji is fighting himself, you can say, right? He's fighting the angel, but at the same time he's fighting himself. And at the same time outside, what is happening outside, we see how Asuka is terribly worried of what's happening. She tries to save him as Rei was. as well, and they can. Misato ordered to withdraw. She's defeated by an angel for the first time in the story, and then she loses her nerve. She hits. She slaps Ritsuko. Ritsuko takes the operations control because she says that you know. She says something like the main priority for Nerve is to recover the Eva and destroy the angel, and that the pilot life is secondary, right? So Misato loses it and hits, slaps Ritsuko, right? And then we have this sequence on Shinji that disconnect with episode 9, no, episode 10. You remember I said that there was a reason why Shinji wasn't on the pool. And the reason is that, as is unveiled on episode 16, Shinji doesn't know how to swim. And he doesn't want to swim. He doesn't want to learn how to swim. His reflection says, they were talking about something, and the reflection says, that's the reason why you don't never learn how to swim. And Shinji replies, humans are not made to float or to swim to water or something like that. So it's very well established that Shinji doesn't know how to swim. And he doesn't want to learn. And that's the connection with episode 10. So we get this sequence, this psychological sequence in which Shinji starts seeing Misato as the mother-like figure, but at the same time, he can hear his mother's voice, and he sees her father walking away, showing his back, and we get to know more about Shinji's psyche, and that's very memorable. That's very important. At the same time, outside, we can see how Asuka and Rei react differently. Rei is more. Both of them are terribly worried about Shinji, but Rei take it more passive, while Asuka is all over her head, and she says how she's an idiot and all this and that, and they almost got to kill to fight each other, but then Misato intervenes and says that she's going to punish Shinji when he comes back. At the end of the day, Yui is actually the one that saves Shinji. Unit 1 goes berserk, destroys Leliel, and Misato goes desperately to save Shinji from the entry plug, and then Rei goes visit him, and Asuka starts eavesdropping behind the door. Which shows once again that Asuka cares a lot about Shinji at this point. So episode 16 is an A. It's a great episode, very memorable. It's very comparable to any of this episode for me. It's a very strong episode. Leliel is such a cool angel. So bad that Leliel didn't make it to Rebuild. I haven't seen 3+1, but I'm not gonna make this video about Rebuild, so let's avoid talking about Rebuild. This is her nerve. Jake Aguilar says, thanks for the reply. I respect where you're coming from. Well, thank you very much, Jake. And I agree. Every single episode has something in it that is important. Now, the way they is delivered is one way. They are different in that way. The way that they are delivered, the emphasis that they put on it, the way that they are developing the story. What episode were we? 17. Episode 17. Okay, so episode 17 is the first part of this mini arc in which Evangelion Unit 4 explodes in the United States because for some reason it exploded. It is believed there is sabotage. But the reason, the legit reason that they say, the official reason, is because they were trying the S2 engine that they recovered again from Shanshell. They were trying with Evangelion Unit 4, and Evangelion Unit 4 rejected it, and that's why it exploded. At this point of the story, Misato already knows that something shady is going on. She already knows, and that happens also in episode 15. She discovers Lilith, right? Which Kaji says is Adam. That's another part that is very important for episode 15. Now that I think about it, that's a very memorable moment. That's a very impactful moment. I completely obvious. I have to put 15 as an S. Sorry. The first time we see Lilith is very important, and it's a memorable moment. Episode 15 is an S. Sorry to put it a 9. I completely forgot about that. Yes, there's no doubt in my mind. The romantic part and the first time we see Lilith is yes, no doubt in my mind. So where were we? Yeah. So at this point of the story, Misato already knows about about what she thinks is the Adam, she knows that something shady is going on, and Kaji tells her about the Marduk Institute and Shinji's school, potential pool pilots, and it's called this arc of Kaji and Misato that they're getting together to solve these mysteries, right? We see Rei, I think, for the first time on an LCL tank. We are let know that there's going to be a new pilot. It's Toji. Nobody tells Shinji across the story that it's a communication story on how, basically it ends up on Shinji mistrusting everyone because he's still recovering from episode 16's aftermath, and still no one talks to him, still no one tells him the truth, and that's it. I mean, other than that, there's nothing going on in this episode, in the sense that we don't get to see Bardiel Unit 3 until episode 18. So yeah, episode 17 is more world building. Yes, that's the thing. I cannot obviate this because episode 17 had a great opportunity for the first time in the story to develop the world, right? Because the Evangelion Unit 3 and 4 are developed in the United States. And we get to see from how do you call it, a satellite picture, Nerf branch in the United States. But we never get to see the Nerf branch in Japan, in the United States or in Germany, or how this government sees Nerf, on how the daily life of the average citizen in the world looks like, right? And it seems to me that episode 17 was the perfect fit for it, but they never revisit that. So they never visit that. So it's a missed opportunity. So we know that there's a world outside Japan. We know that there's a world outside Tokyo 3. And now we know that there are other branches of NERV across the world, but we don't get to experience that world, right? Because it feels this small world, but there actually is a big world out there. And that's something that I feel like episode 17 would have been great to explore, and it feels like a missed opportunity in my opinion. And basically it's building up to the events on episode 18. So I'm gonna put episode 17, which is called The Fourth Child. I'm sorry, it's a C. It's a C, now that I think about it, because it's a missed opportunity. And it's all about communication. This episode is all about communication. Nobody talks to Shinji on who the Toji is, but it's really that big deal? Is it? Because I don't know, it's like they never developed that relationship really good, the relationship between Shinji and Toji. So it's hard to me to believe that it was so hard. I know that Shinji's mental stability is kind of weak at that point, but not telling Shinji that Toji was going to be the pilot, and have like Asuka also knows, but she doesn't tell him either. Even Rei knows because she pays him a visit. She pays Toji a visit. Everybody knows except Shinji, so it's very weird that everybody knows. Shinji doesn't know. Is it really a big deal not to tell him or to tell him? I don't know. I think it could have been handled better. It doesn't feel like a big deal, and the reason why it doesn't feel like a big deal is because they never really developed that relationship between Shinji and Toji. It's not believable, in my opinion. Also, the world building, I think, yes, is a missed opportunity. Episode 17. It works like a build up to episode 18 that we're gonna talk in a bit. All right. Give me a second. Okay, so episode 18 is Ambivalence. That's the title. And this is Bardiel attack. We know how it goes. It's one of the most memorable episodes in the show. For many people, this is the best episode ever. I did like this episode. I still like it, of course. But the thing is, I do have problems with this episode. Of course, a quick recap. Misato goes to Masushiro with Ritsuko. They're going to activate Unit 3. They say Toji, Shinji still doesn't know there's Toji. Unit 3 is possessed by Bardiel, causes an explosion. The angel that is now Unit 3 starts walking towards Tokyo 3. It defeats Asuka and Rei and start fighting Shinji. Shinji doesn't want to fight it because he doesn't know who is inside it. Gendikari activates the dummy plug, and the dummy plug ends up killing Bardiel and almost killed Toji, right? So that's a quick recap of it. Episode 18 is one of the best episodes on the series. And it's a pivotal point because after episode 18, nothing feels the same. None of these episodes feel like the rest of the story. The story gets really dark and very, very it starts very psychological, right? And the reason is because Shinji doesn't trust anyone after episode 18. And that's the importance. There's a before and after episode 18. That's the importance of episode 18. But I do have problems with episode 18. Ambivalence. For me, it's an A. It's not an S. And the reason being is because it feels like Bardiel defeats Unit 2 and Unit 0 really, really easy. We never get to see them fight. I don't buy it. I never bought that. You could have this massive mecha battle here of 3 Evangelion units fighting this other Evangelion unit, and we never get to see that. All we see is Unit 3 strangling Unit 1, and then when the dummy plug is activated, Unit 1 strangles back until he breaks his neck, and that's it. That's the whole fight. That's the whole battle. And you can have this epic battle among the 3 Evangelion units against EVA 3. And I don't know, I kind of like EVA 3. And I would have loved to have it in a couple of more episodes. I don't know. I didn't bother that. Now I understand the importance, as I explained. That's why it makes a 9. Misato survives, of course. Ritsuko survives. And Misato knows that she screwed up by the end of the story because she never told Shinji about Toji. But it's such a missed opportunity. And having Yamashita there working with Anno in episode 18 and they missing that opportunity. Maybe it was a budget thing. I don't know. I don't know the backstory of episode 18. But man, such a missed opportunity. That's why I cannot give it a 10. But because of its importance and what it means for many people, it's definitely a 9. In my opinion. Now, many people has it as the best episode of the series. I don't know about that. That leads us to episode 19. Now, episode 19 is Ceruel episode, right? This is a straight S. Now, in this episode, a quick recap is, what's the name of it, by the way? Episode 19 is titled, what was the name? Introjection. So, Introjection starts with Shinji in complete, he's being a rebel. He doesn't want to go out of the Evangelion unit because he knows at that point that was Toji, and Toji almost died because of his father's actions, right? And then he leaves NERV again. When he was leaving NERV, there are certain things that happen. Asuka doesn't say goodbye to him. Remember, Asuka's been defeated by Unit 3 without almost any opposition. And she feels that Shinji's taking this very coward decision of leaving everyone. Now, how we know this? Because when Ceruel starts attacking and Asuka is preparing for battle, she says that she's going to defeat the angel even if weak Shinji or that brat is not here, you know, because she feels that she was left by Shinji, right? So Shinji decides to go back because Ceruel destroys Unit 2. Well, it takes its arms away, and Asuka is defeated. And then Unit 0 tries to destroy it, but she fails. Ceruel still moves into his attack. So Shinji finds Kaji. Kaji at that point on the watermelon field, and Kaji at that point he was discovered by the NERV security officers that he was a spy. So he was fired, and then he convinces Shinji to go back. So this is the second time that Shinji left NERV, and the second time Shinji returns to NERV, right? And he's doing this on his own terms, not in his own terms, but by his own choice. He's never been pushed to do anything. He always have done everything on his own will, right? So Bardiel is a very important angel because he's the first angel that actually attacks humans. He gets into the central dogma, destroys all the walls with one shot, and actually faces Misato and the NERV personnel and is about to kill them. And then we have this epic battle between Unit 1 and Ceruel. Actually, Ceruel is defeating Unit 1, but it's not until Unit 1 gets Berserk that actually is able to fight back, right? Now that scene in which Unit 1 goes Berserk and starts walking in all fours with these glowing eyes in this dark background with the with this tone of bloody tone, and everything turns very dark. That sequence is amazing, right? That's a memorable scene, very impactful. He's able to not only defeat the angel, but he starts to eat the angel. It's really good. It's one of those episodes that is definitely gonna stick with you forever. That you actually see the true form of Unit 1. Now, I didn't know this. I just realized this a couple of months ago, because I'm currently reading Yamashita's anima, and Yamashita explains that after that event, right, in episode 19, Unit 1 doesn't need an umbilical cord anymore, because now he has the S2 engine, because he eats it. I never realized that until recently. I was truly amazed. Now, I haven't seen or paid close attention to it again ever since I read that quote from Yamashita. But the next time that I watch Evangelion, the last episodes, I have to pay attention to it, because now that I remember, when he was on episode 24, descending toward the terminal dogma, fighting Unit 2, did he had an umbilical cord? Up the power cord? I don't remember that. But Yamashita says in Anima that after he eats Ceruel's S2 engine, he doesn't need an external power engine anymore. That's what he says. All right, and that's episode 19. It's one of those very impactful episodes, memorable episodes, great episode. Comfortzone says SSS ranking, right? S plus ranking. Yeah, episode 19 is wow. It's great. Sadly, episode 20. Oh my god. Episode 20 is like everything that episode 19 is not. Now, episode 20 is weaving a story to the oral stage. I am sorry. I know that it has some psychological thing because we see Shinji turning into LCL, but at this point, as a first-time viewer, they don't really never explain what instrumentality actually is and how it works, and you know, they don't explain the way. I mean, in episode 19, Ritsuko says that he's going to lose his human form, but what does that mean, right? They never explained that before until that point, and then it turns out that what they meant is that he was going to his soul was going to remain on a sea of LCL. That's what they meant, right? That is, now after the events of episode 19, Shinji is still as a soul. It's his soul form. Inside Evil 1, and they try to figure out how to rescue him as a human with his human body. That's very interesting, to tell you the truth. All of that is very interesting. But the way it was presented on episode 20 is its weakness. Because there's a ton of still shots. There are frames. It's like a PowerPoint presentation, to tell you the truth. Right? We get these frames, and we have 5 minutes dialogues, and then we jump to another frame, and nothing ever moves, and you're trying to explain something that is very complicated only by dialogue among characters. So the way it was presented is, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work. Such a pivotal part, and that's the reason why episode 25 and 26, when we'll get there, we're going to talk about it. They are so confusing for a first time viewer, because episode 20 doesn't explain it right. So I'm sorry, episode 20 is a D. And it hurts me because it's the direct follow up to episode 19, which is such an epic episode. The way they delivered the messages was really bad. Yeah. I don't know if it's budget. People say it's budget. I don't know about that. Probably they don't have any idea how to deliver that. That the whole is develop this story at this point, right? Franco Mussolini says, no, he didn't. No, he did what? What do you mean, Franco? Okay, so yeah, it's I'm trying to think on something on episode 20 that, I mean, the ending is good. The entry block opens, and Shinji's not there at the beginning of the sequence, but only LCLs goes out with Shinji's entry block floating. Oh, you mean the power cord, right? He didn't have an umbilical cord. Yeah, correct. Descending to the dogma. I never realized that. I just realized that by reading Yamashita's anime. So, and that's another thing that they never address, because if I am just figuring that out 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, it's been 25 years. And I know this series very good, and I never realized that. All right, so yeah, episode 20. I cannot rescue anything other than Misato crying at the end. That's it. I had nothing else to say about episode 20. All right, so episode 21. Episode 21 is the source of my ideal prequel for Evangelion, right? So it's an episode that we are telling. They are telling us the background story of our main characters of Gendo Ikari, of Koso Fuyutsuki, of course Misato, Kaji, and Ritsuko. We get to meet Naoko Akagi. We get to meet Ray 1. So episode 21 is a very important story that is telling us how things led to episode 1, right? How Nerve was created. They are letting us know about Gerim for the first time, and how events develop. I always loved episode 21 because it opens up the world of Evangelion. It's telling us the events that led us from the second impact, even before that, because when we are with Yui, we are before episode the second impact. The only problem that I have with episode 21 is that they never get to explain the actual Yui Ikari motivations to merge with Unit 1. Now it's debatable if that was the intention. But many people has agreed that was the intention. The intention of Yui was to merge with Unit 1. And episode 21 was the episode that they had to explain that, her real motivations, and they don't do it. At least they don't do it clearly. She has these ambiguous discussions with Koso Fuyutsuki. We never get to see her with Gendo, to tell you the truth, in this episode. She's very weird. She's there, but we never see them in the same frame as we see them at the end of episode 26. So I always imagine maybe a 2 or 3 part OVA in which they develop on that. From those events that led to the second impact to, I don't know, discovering Asuka after the death of Asuka's mother. That those events there were always a gray area. They never really expanded on them, right? We're gonna get it or no in the future. I don't know. I don't think Anno is gonna touch this property anymore, but maybe someone else will. So episode 21, yeah, it's definitely a A. It's a very different episode. We are telling it's a prequel episode. They are telling us the events that led to the events of the end of of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I was always in love with this episode. Actually has a very terrible scene in which a child is murdered, right, by Naoko Akagi, that she kills Ray 1. And the way that sequence happens is magnific, with a red background, and then she committing suicide. It's really good. Episode 21 is really good. Comfort Soul says, yes, makes sense. Neither do I remember seeing one. This saved the negative catharsis of Evangelion when the army goes for Asuka's court. That's true. Holyplex says EVA world building is always something that I feel could have been more developed, especially as is such an interesting universe. That's right. It feels like a small universe on the way we present it. But we know that there's a world out there because many of all of the mass-produced EVAs are produced in different countries by different branches of NERV that are under the control of SEAL. Right? When I don't remember which episode was, but there's an episode in which Gen Ducati is in this plane flying on the Earth atmosphere, right? And then comes this shady character, and he sits aside him, and Gen Ducati asks, what your government think about it, right? Something like that. They're talking about shady stuff. And this guy that I think is Chinese tells him that they are on the development of two of the mass-produced EVAs. I don't remember in which episode happens, but that happens. And at that point, we are letting know that other governments are developing its own EVAs, and those EVAs are the mass-produced EVAs. And that's another missed opportunity that I could expand more on that. Right, we were on episode 22. This is the last Asuka episode. All right, and for me, it's the weakest. It's a 7. And the reason being is that Asuka is defeated for the 3rd time in a row. She was defeated by Bardiel. She was defeated again by Ceruel in episode 19. And then again on episode 22, that is the last time she's defeated. She's defeated this time by Arael. Right? This light angel that comes from outer space. She has this psychological attack. She remembers her mother. We get more about her background. At the beginning of the story, her syncs number are going down terribly. Misato hints. Many people overlooks this, and that's why I'm bringing it up. That is because she's getting her first period, right? So Asuka is turning into a woman. There's a normal thing to happen. But Ritsuko says at the same time that her physical changes shouldn't affect her psychological connection with the Eva, right? But I'm not sure about that. I never bought that. I think it does. And because she's going into this depression because of her natural changes, she's starting to go into this spiral of sadness that she was, she's, first of all, she's been defeated a lot. She cannot pilot the Eva. She's starting to get into this depression, remembering her mother, to the point that she's defeated again, and she's not able to pilot the Eva anymore. Asuka's story is a very sad story, and the way it was delivered in episode 22, it feels a little bit rushed. And the way they end the episode is very weird because they make it look, at this point of the story, we are in a very dark stage of the story. But at the end of this episode, everything is shiny and everything is, shiny sun, blue sky, as we see here. This is the exact in this image. This is the exact last shot of the episode, and Shinji is like here, looking at her because he's worried about her, right? But I think that Asuka never forgave Shinji. He running away again, and now she feels completely lonely. She cannot even pilot her Eva anymore, and that's her breakdown. That's what I call her downfall, right? how things change from episode 8 to episode 22. And my problem is that we never get to see Asuka's perspective. It feels like we are being told the story from someone else's perspective, right? I mean, we know that psychologically how Asuka remembers her mother, but there's not like we don't get that sweet spot of Asuka in this episode. Like we ended up like feeling like poor Asuka instead of Asuka can actually overcome this because she's strong enough. You know what I'm saying? Like we really feel that she's end. This is her end, you know, and I didn't like that because they presented a very weak, a defeated hero here without. We don't see her again really on her good side until the end of Evangelion. So this is basically the ending for Asuka on Neon Genesis Evangelion, episode 22. She appears again in the following episodes, and we last see her on episode 24. She appears on episode 25 and 26, but as the Asuka that we know for most of the story, she never appears again after episode 22. So I don't know. For me, it's a sad ending for Asuka in Neon Genesis Evangelion TV story. It could have been better. She deserved better. But still is Asuka. It's an Asuka episode. We get her background, so I cannot give her less than a 7. That's my opinion. That leads us to episode 23. Episode 23. Give me a second. Wait. All right. So episode 23, we are starting to build up for the ending, right? Asuka is out of the picture, basically. She's in this depression. She cannot. I mean, she's aboard of Eva 2, but she cannot fight because she cannot synchronize with Eva. That's true. She's aboard Eva 2 in episode 23, but she cannot synchronize. So she cannot move. Now, episode 23 is when Ray 2 dies. Armisael attacks. Is Armisael? What's the name of the angel? I think it's Armisael. Armisael, yes. The name of this episode is Ray 3. And we get to see how Ray, at this point, she's Ray 2. She's completely emancipated from Gendikari, right? She knows that she wants to live. She wants to be in this big world and do her own thing, and she's being more independent, a little bit more extrovert, a little bit more social, and she's learning how to live by herself and all that. That's the essence of Ray 2, the story of Ray 2. But then Armisael attacks and starts attacking her. And she understands that the only way that she can protect Shinji and she can protect the world is by killing herself and destroying the angel in the meantime. She starts crying. She doesn't understand what's that because it's the first time she cries. And that's the difference between Asuka's ending and Ray's ending. Ray has an heroic ending. Has a beautiful ending. And that's an S for me. And if you're a Ray fan, you should be very satisfied for how Ray 2 ends her story. It's a very beautiful episode. And this particular scene in which she's in this LCL C talking to herself. Now, many people argue that the other self is Ray 1. That doesn't make any sense because it's exactly as Ray 2. And Ray 1 appears again on episode 25, I think it is episode 25 or episode 26. I think it's episode 25. And she appears as a child because she dies as a child. And people argue that she is talking to Ray 1, but that doesn't make sense. I think she is talking to her reflection that is being influenced by the angel. But that's my opinion. So, not only that, at the end of the episode, and that's another thing that happens in this episode. Okay, I almost forgot. Episode 23 starts with Ritsuko naked in front of Seal, the monolith, right? Gendikari sent her there. And there's countless speculations that Ritsuko Akagi in this episode was raped. All right? By whom? Well, there's no clarity on that. The common belief is that someone at Seal. Not the monolith themselves, not Seal, the committee itself, but by someone working there. Maybe the security personnel or something like that. And that's the reason why she completely crumbles by the end of the episode, because she feels like Gendikari betrayed her. He sends her to Seal, and she knew what was going to happen, right? So it's a very dark area there. I don't know. I never made up my mind on that, but that's the word, right? That's the fan theory. And then by the end of the episode, Misato goes to Ritsuko because another thing that I didn't talk about in episode 21, Kaji dies on episode 21. So Misato is still trying to unveil the truth, and she follows Ritsuko, and they go into the terminal Dogma, in the part in which Ray was born, right? Now that's the origin story for Ray Quantum. On my Ray video, I go more into it. They go into this lab in which the floor and the walls are painted, Tom Bottom and Stranger, which is part of quantum physics, and that's basically the explanation for Ray Quantum. And then they go into this another lab in which we find all the rays floating and swimming. Right, that is such an impactful moment, because now we realize that Ray is a clone. It was hinted, because after episode 21 and we saw how Ray 1 died, we asked ourselves how Ray is actually alive on episode, in the aftermath, right? It was because he was a clone. And we get all these titles like Ray 1, Ray 2, and Ray 3, and we don't realize until episode 23 that she's actually a clone. We see it by ourselves. Ritsuko kills the clones because, but that was after Gendikari actually gave life to Ray 3. And that leads to Shinji actually feeling that everybody at that point has betrayed him. Everyone. Yeah, episode 23 is definitely an S. It's a 10. All right, so we're heading towards how long I've been streaming? I've been streaming for almost 2 hours. Yeah, I have to speed this up. What time is it? Oh, good lord. All right, so let's head towards episode 24. I'm sorry, this is Kaoru's episode. So this is the actual ending for the TV story, right? Because we know that episode 25 and 26 were replaced by the end of Evangelion. We're going to talk about that later. But for me, episode 24, it's Kaoru's episode. It's the only episode in which Kaoru appears, and he brings this beam of hope to the story that it could have, when everything feels that he's gonna be lost, Kaoru's presence in the story it feels like he's going to be the savior of the story, right? The first time that we see the story, we don't know who he is. We know he's working for Seal, but the way that he behaves is completely different on what Seal is, right? He's compassion. He's full of good intentions. Don't get me wrong, he wants to kill the world. He's still an angel. Which I remember the first time watching, it wasn't a big reveal for me. It was very clear. But the way that he behaved with all this love and compassion and positive intentions and all that, and at the end saving Shinji and saving humanity, and I don't know, man. Episode 24 is a great episode. Kaoru's episode is always been very special. Also, at the beginning of this episode, Asuka is trying to commit suicide, right? So it's very impactful seeing her, how democrated she is, right? So if the TV story would have ended here, and then we get the end of Evangelion, it would have been, for a first-time viewer back in 95 or 96, an excellent story. But Kaoru's episode is a 10. It's a 10. The drama at the end with Ode to the Joy and how Kaoru dies, and yeah, everything is great. Everything in episode 24 is great. Isano at his best. So we are heading towards episode 25 and 26. Now these are the two more debatable episodes of the real story. Oh god, how I'm gonna do this? I did a 45 minutes video explaining and analyzing episode 25 and 26. So I'm not gonna go way too deep into that because I don't have time for that. But for a first-time viewer, I'm talking myself 20 years ago, it was such a weird episode 25. Because these episodes were building something really special, like something really epic. But then we got this, Shinji crying. Now, 25 years later, and after analyzing, and after revisiting it multiple times and understanding what Anno was trying to say, of course, they are very good episodes. But for a first-time viewer, it's weird because instrumentality is never very well explained. We don't know exactly what it is, and we don't know who actually Lilith is or her purpose. And we get into this Freudonian drama. I always seen episode 25 and 26 as a standalone episodes. It simply doesn't feel as part of the whole story, So right now, I do feel like episode 25 is a 8. But to tell you the truth, episode 25 and episode 26, they damage, right, the legacy of the story. And that's something that an Evangelion fan cannot forget. And don't get it wrong. Episode 25 and 26 are Anno's ending. He decided to give this ending. He had other endings planned, more advanced, but he went with this ending. So this is his ending. The end of Evangelion is a reimagining, a revisiting of this ending. It's an alternative ending, and it's the official ending. So, I'm sorry, but episode 25 is a D. It damages the legacy so much. It's not very well delivered. I understand the artistic aspect of it. I really like this episode now, but for the audience in general, it's still a meme. And that hurts the legacy. And episode 26 is a bit better. And the reason why I believe is a bit better is because of the alternatives, the alternative world. You know, that 5 minutes alternative world that they put in with Asuka Shinji. Like that's the ending that most people wanted to see, a normal world, right? And Anno teases that there. And I don't know, man. It damages the legacy of Evangelion as a whole way too much. And these two are great episodes, but I always seen them as standalone episodes, no part of the story as a whole. So it's a 7 just because of that sequence. And that's it. Those are the 26 episodes ranked on my list. All of them, I went over all of them, give you my opinion of each one of them. Now, I'm not gonna get too much into the end of Evangelion, but this is easy. This is easy. This is very easy. I haven't. I'm gonna go more into it when I start my series on the end of Evangelion. But at the end of Evangelion is a masterpiece. It's very easy in these theories. But that's it. Those are the 26 episodes plus the end of Evangelion, I guess. And that's my list. That's my opinion. Guys, if you have something to say right now, because I'm gonna end the stream in the first minutes, in the next few minutes. If you are late here or you want to rewatch this later, it's gonna be available as a regular video later on. Let's see if there's something else I'm missing. I think that's it. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out, and I hope that you like the live stream, and if you're watching this later on, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna start very soon my series on the end of Evangelion, as I say on my Discord, and so stay tuned for that. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually post the first part this weekend. I'm gonna try. But for certain, unless something change, for certain my next video is going to be an end of Evangelion video. It's going to be my first end of Evangelion video. Alright, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching, for hanging out. And it's been a pleasure. Leave your comments if you're watching the video later on. And I'll see you all around. Have a wonderful day, alright? Alright. Thank you very much. Bye.